everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Next Up Live. My name is Jeremy Goldberg, and I'm going to be your host today. This new interview series from League Apps and our Next Up community features inspiring stories from people, news, and happenings around the industry. And I am excited to talk to Brendan Winters, co-founder and director of ProSkills Basketball. Great to see you, Brendan. Thank you for joining us. And I know when I'm looking for opinions for things that I'm not sure about, I'm going to turn to you first. You and Logan are thought leaders. I've seen that through your work with the NBA Flagship Network and the amazing kind of work and organization you built through ProSkills. So, one of the things that's been on my mind is this discussion and debate over the name and image and likeness opportunity, or called NIL, right? And there was a New York Times article a few weeks ago that talked a lot about this and the potential impact on high school sports. But I really wanted to extend that conversation and understand what is the immediate downstream impacts that might have on the youth ranks. And I think not far from you in Charlotte, the top basketball recruit, Mikey Williams, signed with Excel Sports for NIL deals that may number in the millions of dollars. The top quarterback in my old home state, Quinn Ewers in Texas, is going to not play high school football a senior year because he's going to go to Ohio State early because of NIL endorsements. And I'm curious, when you hear these developments, right, these high school athletes, people playing sports at the youth level, starting to kind of take advantage of NIL, what did you think about? What did you think when you heard about them?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. Personally, it creates more opportunity. I'm of the Jay Billis, I guess, school of thought on it all. Is there's no reason that a single entity should be telling a kid, whether that's in high school or college, like, no, you can't do this or you can do that, especially if it's based on, social media following or whatever. You can't make money here, you can't make money there. It's kind of ridiculous because they don't do that in many other walks of life, whether you're a great, pianist or whatever it might be. I think it's ridiculous to try to limit athletes from making money off name, image, and likeness.
Yeah, one thing I think a lot about is, if I spend some time with my wife's cousins, all of them want to become social media influencers. None of them happen to be particularly great athletes, but all of them want to be influencers. And whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, so much of these NIL opportunities really kind of connect back to that social media following. And so I'm curious, when you think about the kids in your program, how does their interest in social media impact how you craft and run your programs? What are the challenges that creates? What are the opportunities that creates? Is that create opportunities for you all to tell your story better as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly need to be aware of it because it has such a large influence on the kids these days. But, if I think back to, a lot of people don't like it or talk about it negatively. But when I think to when I was growing up, people used to talk about television the same way or whatever it was. And there's always something. And nowadays it's social media, but we certainly have to think about it. Some people think it's a distraction, but again, you could go back to video games, TV, whatever it was before that. It does, I think, one of maybe the downfalls, or it could be a benefit depending on how you're looking at it, is it does give people access to more information. So it can create a grass is always greener sort of mentality, but at the same time, it forces organizations, big and small, to really step their game up, because if they're not providing value, then it's easy for parents and kids to find something somewhere else. So there is positives and negatives to social media, but I think overall it's a positive thing, and it's just you've got to embrace it. Otherwise,
Right.
You're not going to be successful.
And I think I'm running this, Brendan. One of the things I think you all did during the pandemic, when you weren't able to necessarily bring kids together, you were using social media in some really interesting ways, getting even off of Zoom with respect to, I think, how you were engaging kids and workouts and activities and things like that. I don't know if you can share a little bit about that, but it seems like you understand that social media is just a way of engaging kids, and you've done that within your programs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just another line of communication. On top of whether it's email, text, or whatever it is, but we've certainly become much more aware of it over the last number of years. And then with the coronavirus and quarantine and all that, like the move to virtual, whether it's through Zoom and things like that, we had to go pretty hard into that and did a bunch of stuff with USA Basketball and NBPA. And our kids really liked it. We actually, interestingly enough, we got some kickback from parents where the parents said, no, I don't want my kid doing this. But then the kid was totally fine with it, because that's just normal life. They've grown up kind of with virtual whatever it is, and it's just like a lot of times it's older folks like myself, or parents kind of being the ones like resisting it, when the kids it's just totally normal. And so you just got to meet the kids where they're at, and eventually the parents will figure it out too, and
Right.
and the older folks, again, like myself, will get on board with it as well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I can't help but think about my own limited basketball career, not as successful as you, but I would go home after practice and I go work on my free throws. And I can't help but think, if I'm a kid now, I'd be like, I'm gonna go home and work on my free throws, and then I'm gonna try to build my my Instagram following or my TikTok following, just by nature of how things I think are exist with kids today, and how organizations. I really think about how engaging it. I think it's going to be important. One other aspect of the whole NIL discussion is its impact on high school sports. And what you see is, especially until some of the regulations shift, some kids are saying, wait a second, I'm not sure I want to play high school sports because I don't want to have those restrictions. I'm curious to know, do you think that there's an opportunity for kids to focus more and more on club sports as opposed to playing on the scholastic side? Is that something you're already seeing happening even before the NIL? And when you think about high school basketball?
Yeah, it's interesting on the basketball side. I know it happens on the soccer side of things, especially where they say, hey, you've got to play club, you can't play high school, whatever it is. And that hasn't happened on the basketball side. But what we're seeing a lot more of is actually kind of schools almost take a club model and apply that to if you call it the academic side of things. I guess academic might be used loosely, because there's a lot more like basketball schools being created, or basketball factories, or however you want to talk about them, where they're not under the I guess certification of like the National Federation of High Schools or whatever it is. So they're not under those rules, those guidance, like what Mikey Williams is doing and some other ones. So where they can go do the NIL stuff. And I think that is going to just continue to go. Like just in North Carolina, where I'm based, over the last 2 weeks, I think there's been an announcement of 2 new schools like that. One started actually by LaMelo Ball here in Charlotte. So I think it's only going to continue to go that direction until probably something changes with those governing bodies.
Yeah, such a great point. So that disruption of high school sports and the shifting in models, this is only going to be a contributor to your point about what's happened just in Charlotte over the past few weeks. A couple last questions. One of the things that this means with NIL is that brands are going to get more and more interested in what's happening, not just at the collegiate level, but at the high school level and the youth level, right? Especially as they're trying to create opportunities or develop opportunities for athletes. How do you currently work with brands, or what opportunities do you see, or would you dream about working with brands when you think about it from a Pro Skills perspective?
Yeah, that's priority number one for me this year, is to try to figure out how we can work with brands. Just in a better way. We work with some great basketball organizations right now, the Junior NBA, USA Basketball. We've done some great stuff with the MBPA. We have a relationship with Curry Brand and Stephen and Under Armour. But it would be interesting to work with other brands as well, kind of maybe your non-typical, your non-basketball brands, I guess. And that is, I think it's hard for youth sports organizations, because frankly, we're not experts in that area. And oftentimes we don't have any experience going and saying, hey, let's make this partnership with this brand. And so it's kind of like, almost like everything else we do is like, hey, we just got to go figure it out. So
Right.
that is on my list, and I'm super excited to try to figure it out. And I'm certainly asking the guys at the MBPA or at Curry Brand to like, hey, help me out here. Like, what needs to happen?
Right.
But we had a kid on Team Curry who's a very highly ranked player, and he was able to do essentially an Under Armour commercial this year with them. They didn't exactly use his name, but it was him. He was in there and all that. So they did it all above board. But it's cool stuff like that I think you'll be able to see more and more of, where these brands are going to be able to use these young athletes.
A getaway question for you is, when we think about every episode, we want to understand what's next up. So what's next up for Pro Skills through the rest of this year and into 2022?
Well, number one, brand partnerships, looking to do more of that, but also we're expanding into about 10 other cities in 2022, or late 2021, 2022. We have 8 of them locked up. And so that'll put us hopefully around like 25 cities throughout the US. So I think that's that is number one. And we're looking to eventually get into being 40, 50 cities around the US, all the major cities, and hopefully be one of the better basketball organizations and change the culture.
Well, you may also have your own name, image, and likeness opportunities if you can continue to build that empire out. Brendan, I always appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I think what this conversation reminds me of is no one is the expert when it comes to something like NIL, which means all of us can be experts, right? And we need to use the wisdom of the community as we think about brands, as we think about social media, as we think about what this means for this entire industry. So thank you for being with us and for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeremy. We'll figure it out. We'll work through it, man, and the free market will settle it all out.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.